Okay, so I thought we'd just do a little tutorial video really, and it's how do we take an HDR. Now, what is HDR first? Well, it's high dynamic range, and basically what it's saying is the camera can't cope with the amount of light you've got, because the difference it can see between black and white and all the shades of grey in between, it can't cope with it. So we can fool the camera. And this is what you do when you've got your photos and you've been out and you saw a lovely scene and your eye thinks it looks fantastic, and then you take it, and when you get it back on your computer or you send it off the old way and you get your photos back and you look at your print, it's not a bit like you took, because it's all whites and all blacks and no in between. So how do we do it? Well, let's have a look. Okay, so we've got the scene in front of us, which is the little weir coming over there and the tree at the side. And on the back of the camera, look there, I've done quite a pleasing sort of composition on that. But the thing is that you can see that we've got absolute shadow, black detail in the grass, and the sky is looking okay. Now, if I alter that to make the grass look good, now look what we get. The sky just goes completely blank and horrible. So what we can do is an high dynamic range. Okay, so how do we do the high dynamic range? The first thing we're going to do is get the focus. So I'm going to focus part way down there into the scene, and then you can see on the here we've got f2.8 320th of a second. So I'm going to bring that up to my usual f11, which will give us now a decent depth of field front and back on that. So we've got the focuses set properly, and I'm going to bring down the exposure compensation there to 0. So now we can see again we've got that reasonably good sky, and we've got the too dark foreground and bank interest. So what I'm going to do is I'll take a shot at that. Now what I usually do is take a shot with my hand in front of the camera. And what you've got there is, when I put my hand in front of the camera, like that, it becomes a reference shot. So we've got a 2-second timer on, so I'll press the button, stick my hand in, there we go. So I know now that this next shot is going to be the opening one. So what we do is, we're going to come down on the compensation to get the sky and the detail in the water there. Now if I bring the histogram up onto screen there, what we'll see now is that we've crunched down the blacks and we've brought the highlights nicely down. In fact, we brought them down a long way. We could just do this so we don't clip the highlights. I'm going to bring it down a little bit further there and take the first shot. And then what I'm going to do is open up now so that we're coming on, and the histogram now is bang in the center. So that's what the camera says it should be. And now what I'm going to do, so you can see there that the whites aren't clipping, they're just off the edge. And now I'm going to open up the shadows until the back of the histogram, just about there, comes away from the left hand edge, and take that shot. Okay, and then the last shot I'm going to take is the end of the sequence, so I'll put my hand back in front and you can just see my fingers in there. Okay, so what we're going to do then is we'll take that into Lightroom and we're going to blend all three of those images together. So what it will do, it will take the highlights and it will take the shadows and it will take the mid-tones from 3 separate photographs and blend them. Usually it does a pretty good job on its own. If it doesn't, then we can try doing it manually. So we'll switch into Lightroom and we'll see how we do with that one. We're back inside now. Before I open up Lightroom to have a look at the images for putting together into the HDR shot, I've had a little bit of a problem in that when I was downloading from the memory card, for some reason it's corrupted all the images. So rather than just waste what I'd already done, and the film that we'd taken. Decided to go ahead with it. So the bit you've just watched up until this point, that is exactly how I would set the camera up, how I would go about taking the steps for the HDR shot. What we're going to look at here is 3 images that I took for an HDR when I did 9 Ladies Stone Circle. So if I bring up Lightroom, you can see there we've got the images. We've got these 3 images here. Now this image that I'm highlighting at the moment, that was what the camera said it should have been. Now there were a lot of really nice sky detail which I wanted to bring out. So what I did, I took the standard shot and then I went underexposed, probably by, I don't know, probably about 1.5 stops there. And then to get all the details in the shadow areas around the root system here, I overexposed it and took another one at around about 1 to 1.5 stops over what the camera said. What I'm going to do now is merge these into the HDR. So all you need to do, we've got first one highlighted, holding down Control, clicking the other 2 so they're all highlighted, then we go up here to Photo, Photo Merge. Now there we've got 3 options. HDR, that's what we're going to be doing. So we're merging the 3 pictures to get the best tonal range. Panorama, where we've done before, where we've stitched the images together to form a wider shot. And then HDR panorama, which combines the 2. So you could do 3 shots for each stage of your panorama, and then Lightroom will merge those together and give you the best result possible. Now there's a problem with that. It takes a lot of memory processing. So this computer that I've got here, it's a Core i5 7th generation, and it's running 8 gigabytes of memory, internal memory. It will slow it down to the point of stopping. So all I'm going to bother with here is just the HDR. So we click HDR, and then what it will do is bring up this window. And we got there creating HDR. Excuse me. What it's doing now is putting the pictures together, and that's what it thinks it should have. Now up here we've got 2 check boxes. Auto Align will take the photos and lay them one on top of the other, so if there's any slight variation, it will try to take them out. Auto Settings, Lightroom is applying settings now which it thinks are the right ones. Now if I turn it off and uncheck the box, what you'll see now is that we've lost the sky detail. So if I bring that back on, there we go. Now I usually do that I start with it off, but then I'll always have a look at it, and in this case I think it's doing a pretty good job, so I might as well go with it. These down here, de-ghost amount. If we've got any movement in these trees, it will try to look at it and take the ghost images away. So there we've got no control at all. There we've got just a little bit. Now we've got medium, which I tend to use all the time, and high. So if it's really moving, we can use the high. The show de-ghost overlay there, if I tick that, it shows the overlay where it's had to do the de-ghosting. So I'll just take that off. Create stack will create a stack image that we can take across and take it into Photoshop. So I'm going to leave these 2 on, leaving that on medium, and I'm just going to click merge. Okay, so it's been added to the taskbar up there. It takes quite a long time, so what I'm going to do is we'll just pause it there and I'll come back once we've got that bit done. Okay, so it's done it now. We've got the image up here. So if I click on that, double click it, there we've got the image coming out. Now, going into the develop module, we'll open up the basics tab and we can see what sort of job it's done there on its own. And I think that looks pretty decent, to be quite honest. Okay, I've cropped it a little bit. So what we can do is we'll just move this crop about. I've got a 16 by 7. Let's go 16 by 9. And we'll open that up. There we go. Let's open that up as well. And then bring it down that way so we get the full width. Lovely. Okay, right, so that looks to me pretty decent. So what I'm going to do is I will save that. So that's clicked on done there. Looks pretty decent actually. We've got no blinkies at the top, so we're not, it's done a really good job there of taking the highlights and the shadows and not clipping. Just put a little bit more clarity into it. So we just open it up a little bit, tiny bit of dehaze. Just bring back the vibrance. Tone curve, I don't really think we need to do anything with that. Let's just lift the lights a tiny bit there, and then we'll bring down the highlights just to get that sky a little bit more. Details tab, let's have a look at that one. We'll make it a little bit sharper. Let's put the target point over something that's going to be useful, like there. Sharpen the image up just a tiny bit, that's fine is that. Don't need to look at the noise reduction, so let's close that tab and we'll go down now to effects. I like putting a little bit of vignette on, so if I just bring it in a little bit, that just darkening off the edges to bring, this is the bit that I really liked around this root and the tree laying down, and it looks like this one's fallen, these are leaning over to try to get to it. So there we go, so that's the finished image there. So if we click back into library and I bring multiple images up, so what we've got is those three there merged into this one. So we've got, to my mind, the best of all worlds. So there we have it. That's how you do a HDR shot. So hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a bit of a short one. I've been a bit preoccupied the last couple of weeks. Got myself a new motor, which there will be a video coming up very shortly about that. I'm quite excited about it. So if you have liked it, think about subscribing. Hit the bell for notifications. Give it a thumbs up for a like. And if you know anybody that might benefit from it, share it on social media.